Hi, everyone. I would like to pick up on the conversation where we left off about the angry black woman, but first I want to um, give a nod of appreciation to some of the material that you brought forward um, in that conversation around the disproportionate amount of people, disadvantaged people who are being fined during COVID-19 and how the lack of physical contact is affecting people who are not potentially privileged to live within families. So, really, thank you for that. Just following up that too, I want to comment and maybe ask a few questions around some of the other pieces that you brought forward around seamlessly being able to adjust your work to go online to serve the needs of the clients or the service users. So, for those people who quickly went online, I'd like to maybe ask what kind of online protocol, in terms of privacy protocol, did you institute before you went online? I know that in this province we don't have a protocol, but I have been looking at some of the ones that they have in Ontario, in other parts of Canada, and across the world for working with people um, through electronic means. So I'm just wondering, what protocol did you put in place for yourself and for your service users around? Did you ensure that they had a secure passwords, that you had an understanding around what kind of information would be passed on to them, would be shared with other people when you work with people through this means? And also, I'm wondering too is how are people's privacy being compromised? Because one thing is, if they come to you at the office, then at least, they show up how they show up. But when you need to speak with them at their homes, there are all kinds of things that happen that would normally not happen in your meetings and in your regular relationships. So I'm wondering how you're taking those things into consideration. The other thing that I'd like to comment about is how some of you actually said that you personally had not really been affected, that you went online and it's been great because you don't have to drive to the office or and some of those kinds of things. So again, I'm wondering, how do you check your privilege in that regard? And when people are unable to show up for a meeting, or if you see something in their homes that you normally would not see because you're not there, how does that affect the relationship that you're building or you've created with people? I know this is not about community organizing, but since we're speaking about how people have adjusted to working within a COVID-19 environment, I think this is maybe a fair question or comments to make. And also, I've noted some comments around accessibility, that it's easier and more accessible, but maybe that's easier and more accessible for workers or for people who have access to the internet or phone. Some people actually have limited access to phone because they need to pay each time they use their phones, and also some people have limited access to internet. So when you say better access or more accessible, to whom do you refer? Are you referring to yourself, and which group of service users are you talking about? I think this is really important that we consider people in rural areas and people who might not be in rural areas but who actually cannot afford to be online because of financial means. So those are a few things that I would invite you to think about as you go forward in working in this environment. So regarding the commentary around the Black woman in Nova Scotia that is charged with animal abuse and assault, actually, it says assault with a weapon, and the dog itself was the weapon, and a number of other things. And how people actually talked about her in some quite vicious racist and racialized and sexist manner. I wasn't aware of the story until it was brought to our attention in class, and then when I looked at it, I felt quite sad because one of the first things I wondered is whose lives matter in all of this. And we have been out in the streets protesting for weeks around Black Lives Matter. And the first opportunity someone gets to publicly support a Black woman, the trope of the angry Black woman was thrown at her and she was arrested without people knowing the full story of what had occurred between her and the dog owner. And so this whole notion of the angry Black woman steps before Black women at all times. It doesn't matter where we go, who we are with, what we are doing, the angry Black woman trope comes out. And so quite often we actually don't have the opportunity to start with what people would call a clean slate, because our stereotypes and reputation of those that are on the big screen or small screen, as in terms of TV and now videos, tend to show Black women in a particular manner. And so we're saucy, bitchy, bossy, and we're also cruel. And the treatment that the woman got actually demonstrated how people actually think about Black women. What I wonder about is how many of those people that attacked this woman and her family were out taking a knee and chanting Black Lives Matter in the streets and lying down in the street, mimicking George Floyd's death after he was executed. So what comes to mind for me is the absolute importance of the work that we do and how we do the work in terms of recognizing whose lives actually matter. When people say all lives matter, that's what they're meaning. To me, they're meaning that the dogs' lives matter more than Black people, because we're actually less than humans. And we're not even at the place where dogs are. And if you remember during the Katrina hurricane, how pictures floated around on the internet with Greyhound buses rescuing dogs while Black people were being killed by increasing waters in their homes and things like that. So, I think that's what I really wanted to say about that particular piece specific to the angry Black woman. But maybe the other thing I'd like to say is that women, generally speaking, are not expected to be angry. We're not supposed to show anger, but some women show anger in different ways. And some of those expression of anger is acceptable depending on who the woman is, what her social class is, and other pieces of her background. So for example, Serena Williams, the greatest tennis player of all time, female tennis player of all times, talks about how she's treated when she gets angry and how she is fined or treated differently than when the men get angry. And it's not just Serena, it's other women as well. But I just wanted to bring her to your attention because of our talk around the angry Black woman. But the other thing to consider is that Black women are expected to not speak. Whether we speak or not, we are still seen as I said, bitchy, bossy, the shrew, and uncontrollable. I guess probably that's one of the better words to use. We're not controllable. We cannot be tamed. And also, people tend to be afraid of us. And I've also always wondered, where are the horns? Why are people afraid of words? And so it's really important, it seems to me, that people do everything they can, everything in their powers, to ensure that the woman is overpowered. The Black woman is overpowered in a way to not only take away her humanity, but also take away her choices. Because how many times have we seen in Nova Scotia, Black people being beaten, brutalized, and violated by police officers, and no charges are laid? And how many times do we see during an investigation they are given pay during a leave, for example, right? And that's how you begin to understand, for me at least, how whose lives are valuable and whose lives are not, and how we teach the world, including children, about who Black women are and what our values are. I think that's it for now. Thanks.